Hello and welcome to my YouTube. This YouTube is remembering the year 1988. Ronald Reagan was president in 1988. I was 43 years old in my 8th year with Apple Computer as their Senior Education Development Executive. On January 1st, the Dell Computer Corporation was incorporated. On February 12th, Anthony M. Kennedy is appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States. On February 24th, Hustler magazine versus Jerry Falwell. The Supreme Court of the United States sides with Hustler magazine by overturning a lower court decision to award Jerry Falwell $200,000 for defamation. So Jerry Falwell lost that case. On March 8th, 2 U.S. Army helicopters collide in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, killing 17 servicemen. On March 16th, the Iran-Contra affair, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North and Vice Admiral John Poindexter are indicted on charges of conspiracy to defraud the United States. On April 4th, Governor Evan Mecham of Arizona is convicted in his impeachment trial, and he was removed from office. On April 12th, former pop star Sonny Bono is elected mayor of Palm Springs, California. Sonny and Cher. On April 28th, Aloha Flight 243, which was a scheduled flight to Honolulu, suffers an explosive decompression after a portion of the aircraft's roof towards the front of the fuselage tore off during flight, resulting in the death of a flight attendant. On May 14th, bus collision near Carrollton, Kentucky. A drunk driver traveling in the wrong direction on Interstate 71 hits a converted school bus carrying a church youth group from Radcliffe, Kentucky. The resulting fire kills 27 people. On May 16th, a report by U.S. Surgeon General C. Everett Koop states that the addictive properties of nicotine are similar to those of heroin and cocaine. On June 1st, the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, banning intermediate-range missiles in the United States and the Soviet Union, comes into effect. On June 14th, a small wildfire is started by a lightning strike in Montana near the boundary for Yellowstone National Park. The Storm Creek fire expands into the park, and then it merges with dozens of other fires. Eventually, over 750,000 acres of Yellowstone, which is 36% of the entire park area, burns before firefighters gain control. On June 29th, Morrison v. Olson, the United States Supreme Court upholds the law allowing special prosecutors to investigate suspected crimes by the executive branch officials. On July 3rd, Iran Air Flight 655 is shot down by a missile launched from the USS Vincennes, which was a guided missile destroyer. A total case of mistaken identity, for which the United States apologized. On July 20th, the Democratic National Convention in Atlanta, Georgia, nominates Michael Dukakis as their presidential candidate. On August 9th, Wrigley Field in Chicago has its first night game of baseball, ending long opposition to lights at the field. They were actually very proud that they didn't have lights for a long time. They only wanted baseball during the day. On August 17th, Pakistani President Muhammad Zia-ul-Haq and the U.S. Ambassador to Pakistan, Arnold Raphael, are both killed in a plane crash. On August 18th, the Republican National Convention in New Orleans nominates Vice President George H.W. Bush as their presidential candidate and Dan Quayle as his running mate. On September 29th, NASA resumed space shuttle flights which had been grounded after the 1986 Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, with Space Shuttle Discovery going back into orbit and putting the U.S. back into the space race. On October 5th, in Omaha, Nebraska, the only vice presidential debate of 1988, the Republican vice presidential nominee, Senator Dan Quayle of Indiana, insists he has as much experience in government as John F. Kennedy did when he sought the presidency in 1960. His Democratic opponent, Senator Lloyd Bentsen of Texas, replies, and I saw this live on TV, and it is one of the most powerful comebacks I have ever heard. Here it goes. Senator Bentsen: Senator, I knew Jack Kennedy. I served with Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy. And the crowd went wild. On October 27th, President Ronald Reagan decides to tear down the new U.S. Embassy in Moscow because of all the Soviet listening devices that had been secretly put into the building structure. On October 30th, Philip Morris buys Kraft Foods for $13 billion. I mean, look at all the things that Kraft Food owns. Oreos, Wheat Thins, Crystal Light, Newton's, Lunchables, Triscuits, Kool-Aid, Philadelphia Cream Cheese, Oscar Mayer's. On November 2nd, the Morris worm, which was the first computer worm distributed via the internet. It was written by Robert Tappan Morris, and it was launched from MIT, the Minnesota Institute of Technology. I'm sorry, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Sorry, Massachusetts. November 8th. George H.W. Bush is elected President of the United States. On November 8th, in Sacramento, California, police find a body buried in the lawn of 60-year-old landlady Dorothea Puente. 7 bodies are eventually found, and Puente is convicted of 3 murders and sentenced to life in prison. Wasn't such a sweet old lady after all. On November 15th, the 300-foot Green Bank telescope collapses in Green Bank, West Virginia. I mean, think about this. This thing is the size of a football field. You could put a football field in here. It's 300 feet across. And the whole thing just collapsed. On November 18th, President Ronald Reagan signs a bill providing the death penalty for murderous drug traffickers. The war on drugs. On December 21st, Pan Am Flight 103 is destroyed by a bomb over Lockerbie, Scotland, in the United Kingdom, killing 270 people, which included 178 U.S. citizens. This was a huge, huge worldwide story for months and months as they tried to track down the men who did this. And they eventually did. So, who was born in 1988? I could find very few people that I thought everybody would recognize, but here they are. Number one, Adele, great singer. Number two, the actress Emma Stone. Rihanna. What was introduced back in 1988? Well, I worked for Apple and we introduced the scanner, which plugged into our little Macintosh computer. Diet Mountain Dew was introduced that year. The Hewlett-Packard DeskJet, an all-in-one printer, a printer and copier and fax machine. Lunchables, an entire lunch in a little plastic pouch. Prozac, the antidepressant drug. McChicken, the chicken sandwich from McDonnell Douglas. Windows 2.1 came out that year. Next computer. Steve Jobs had been shoved out of Apple Computer and he started another computer company called Next. Eventually, Steve came back to Apple and Apple Computer bought the entire Next Computer company. What were the top grossing movies in 1988? Which ones made the most money? Number one biggest money maker, the cartoon Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Second big money maker, Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. Coming in at number three, Good Morning Vietnam, starring Robin Williams. Number four, Tom Hanks in Big. A little boy wakes up one day and he's a little 12-year-old boy is suddenly in the body of a man, but he's still a little boy. Crocodile Dundee 2. What were the top TV shows back in 1988? Number one, The Cosby Show. Number two, Roseanne. Number three, A Different World. Coming in at number four, Cheers. And number five, 60 Minutes. What were the top songs of 1988? Number 1, Faith by George Michael. Number 2, Need You Tonight by In Excess. Number 3, Got My Mind Set on You by George Harrison, former Beatle. Number 4, Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. And coming in at number 5, Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses. Who won the Academy Awards in 1988? The Academy Award for Best Actor went to this guy, Michael Douglas in Wall Street. The Academy Award for Best Actress went to this lady, Cher, in the movie Moonstruck. And the Academy Award for Best Picture was this picture, The Last Emperor. The average annual salary for a man in 1988 was $19,334. Doesn't sound like much. Let me convert that into today's dollars in 2025. That would be $51,391 in our dollars today due to inflation over the years. The cost of a new car, average modest car, was $14,185. Converting that into our dollars today, that is a $37,705 car. The cost of a new home in 1988 was $138,300. In our dollars, that would be a $367,616 home. The cost of gas was 95 cents a gallon. Sounds really cheap, doesn't it? Let's convert it. It's still a good price. That's $2.53. That's certainly less than what I'm paying right now. Who were the top singers in 1988? Number 1, George Michael. Coming in at number 2, Michael Jackson. Coming in at number 3, In Excess. Coming in at 4th, Def Leppard. And number 5, Whitney Houston. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something new about the year 1988.